All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a topic that's, well, a little mind-bending, even for a show like ours.
Definitely complex, but also incredibly relevant, especially if you're aiming for the UPSC exams.
That's right, we're talking about quantum communication.
A field that's evolving so rapidly, even keeping up with the basics can feel like a full-time job.
Absolutely. So, to help us break it all down, I've got an expert with me today.
Happy to be here and ready to demystify this fascinating world one quantum bit at a time.
I love that. Quantum bits, we'll get to those, I promise. But first, let's set the stage. We're focusing on India's national quantum mission today.
Ambitious stuff. They're aiming for nothing less than global leadership in quantum tech.
And a key part of that is their plan to launch, get this, a quantum satellite in the next few years.
Which is a huge signal, right? It shows they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're going all in.
Exactly. So to understand why this is such a big deal, we need to start with, well, something a bit more familiar. Encryption.
Okay, good starting point. Something we all use every day, even if we don't realize it.
Right. Like right now, listening to this, your phone or computer is probably using encryption to keep your connection secure.
Exactly. And that's mostly thanks to something called asymmetric encryption, which relies on, these complex math problems.
Okay, math, always got to bring in the math. But seriously, how does that actually protect our data?
Well, the idea is that these math problems are really hard for regular computers to solve. Like, it would take them years, even centuries.
So it's like a super strong lock that would take forever to break.
Exactly. But, and here's the catch, quantum computers change the game.
Ah, yes. The quantum computers. Everyone's talking about them, but they still sound like science fiction to me.
They're becoming less fiction every day. And the thing is, they can solve those super hard math problems much, much faster.
Okay, so suddenly our unbreakable lock isn't so unbreakable anymore.
That's the worry, which is why quantum communication is so important.
It's like we need a new kind of lock, one that even a quantum computer can't pick.
Exactly. And that's where something called quantum key distribution, or QKD, comes in.
Okay, QKD. Let's break that down. How does that work? Because it sounds, well, very complicated.
It is complicated, but I think we can make it understandable. Imagine you want to send a secret message, right?
Right, like top secret government stuff or, just my latest grocery list.
Sure. So with QKD, you're not just sending the message, you're also sending a secret key to unlock it.
Okay, like a special code that only the recipient has.
Exactly. But here's where the quantum part comes in. This key isn't just a bunch of numbers or letters. It's encoded in, get this, quantum particles.
Wait, hold on. Particles. Like tiny bits of matter. We're sending those through the internet.
We are. And the cool thing is, because of the laws of quantum mechanics, any attempt to eavesdrop, to peek at those particles, it actually changes them.
So it's like a self-destructing message. Or a burglar alarm that goes off if someone tries to break in.
Perfect analogy. It's like a tamper-proof seal. If someone tries to mess with the key, you'll know instantly.
That's wild. And you're saying this is based on a real scientific principle.
Oh, absolutely. It's called the no-cloning theorem, one of the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. Quantum mechanics makes my head spin a little.
Fair enough. But the key takeaway here is you can't just copy quantum information like you can with, say, a digital file.
So any attempt to steal the key, you'll know, because you've basically destroyed the original in the process.
Precisely. Which makes QKD, at least theoretically, unbreakable, even with a quantum computer.
Okay, now that's impressive. But there's more, right? Didn't you mention something about entanglement earlier?
I did, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, entanglement. Hit me with it. What's that all about?
Well, it's this honestly mind-boggling phenomenon where two quantum particles are linked no matter how far apart they are.
Okay, so like twins can feel each other's pain even if they're on opposite sides of the world.
Kind of. But in this case, it's about their quantum states. If you measure one particle, you instantly know the state of the other.
Even if they're like galaxies apart.
Even then, it's like they're sharing a secret language that only they understand.
Okay, that's seriously weird. But how does that help with encryption?
Well, imagine you send one of these entangled particles to your friend, and you keep the other one.
Okay, so we each have half of this, like quantum secret.
Exactly. And now you can use that shared entanglement to create a secret key that's, well, literally impossible to intercept.
Because any attempt to mess with one particle would instantly affect the other one, no matter how far apart they are.
Precisely. It's like having an invisible, unbreakable thread connecting the two particles.
This is blowing my mind. And you're saying India is actually going to use this technology in their quantum satellite.
That's the plan. And they're already doing some amazing research in this area. For instance, the Raman Research Institute in India,
Yeah.
they found that a place called Hanwell up in the Himalayas is ideal for this kind of satellite communication.
Okay, Hanwell. Why Hanwell? What's so special about that place?
Well, for one, it's super high altitude, which means less atmospheric interference for those fragile quantum signals.
Right, because the air gets thinner the higher you go.
Exactly. And they also have these incredibly clear skies in Handle, perfect for transmitting those delicate quantum signals up to the satellite and back.
So India's got the location, the ambition, they're clearly investing in the research. This is starting to make sense.
It is exciting. But of course, there are still, some challenges.
Okay, challenges. Let's talk about those, because I have a feeling this isn't all sunshine and roses, right?
It never is with cutting-edge technology. But those challenges, well, that's a discussion for part 2 of our deep dive.
All right, cliffhanger. I guess our listeners will just have to wait to hear about those challenges.
They will, but trust me, it's worth the wait. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
And when we return, we'll delve into the limitations of QKD, explore another approach called post-quantum cryptography, and discuss how all of this could impact India's future in a big way. So stay tuned.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how India is going all in on quantum communication, particularly with this ambitious satellite project.
Yeah, and we were just getting to the not so easy parts, the challenges.
Right, because it's not as simple as just launching a satellite and boom, instant unbreakable communication.
So let's dive into those challenges. What are some of the biggest hurdles facing QKD? The things our UPSC aspirants need to be aware of.
Well, one of the, I guess, the most obvious ones is cost. Setting up a QKD network is, it's not cheap.
Okay, cost. We knew that was coming. But how expensive are we talking? Can you give us, like, a ballpark figure?
It's hard to say exactly because it depends on, the scale, the equipment you're using, a whole bunch of factors.
Right, of course. But even a rough estimate would be helpful, just to give our listeners a sense of this scale.
Sure. Some estimates suggest that for a basic metropolitan QKD network, you're looking at, tens of millions of dollars at least.
Tens of millions. Wow, okay, that's a significant investment.
It is. And if you want a nationwide network, well, then you're talking about potentially billions.
Billions. Okay, so for our UPSC folks out there, this is a major policy consideration, right? How do you balance the need for security with the realities of a budget?
Exactly. It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. It requires, careful planning, weighing the risks and benefits.
Right. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the bigger picture, the economic and political context.
Absolutely. And, of course, there are other challenges, too. Cost is just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so what else is there? What other hurdles do we need to consider?
Well, another big one is the last mile problem.
The last mile problem. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
So imagine you've got this super secure QKD link between, say, 2 government buildings, right?
Right.
That part's secure.
But then what?
But then what happens when that information needs to be used within a building, on a local network? Securing that last mile, that final connection point, that can be tricky.
Ah, I see. So it's like having this super secure vault for your crown jewels, but then you leave the key lying around on the kitchen counter.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of, scalability. Building a nationwide network, let alone a global one, that's a massive undertaking.
So, lots to think about. Cost, practicality, scalability. But even with all those challenges, QKD still seems like, a game changer, especially for a country like India with, such ambitions on the world stage.
It definitely has the potential, but, as you study for the UPSC, it's important to be aware of all the angles, all the different approaches.
Right, because it's not like QKD is the only wise solution out there, right?
Exactly. There's another approach, post-quantum cryptography, that's also worth exploring.
Of quantum cryptography. Okay, now we're really getting into the jargon. Can you break that down for us? What is that, and how is it different from QKD?
Sure. So with QKD, remember we're using the weirdness of quantum mechanics to create secure keys, right?
Right, the whole, entanglement thing where particles are linked across vast distances.
Exactly. But with post-quantum cryptography, we're kind of going back to basics. We're using really, really hard math problems, but ones that are specifically designed to be resistant to attacks from both classical A&D quantum computers.
So it's like instead of building a new type of lock, we're making the old lock so complicated that even a quantum computer can't pick it.
That's a good way to put it. And the advantage of this approach is, well, it's a lot more practical in some ways.
Okay. Practical. How so?
Well, for one, you don't need all that specialized equipment that you do for QKD. You can use, existing computer systems, existing networks.
So it's like instead of building an entirely new highway system, we're just upgrading the cars to be, quantum proof.
Exactly. And that makes it, well, a lot more affordable, which is, of course, a big consideration, especially for a country like India.
Right. It's all about finding that balance between, the best possible security and the practical realities of implementation.
Absolutely. And for the UPSC, it's important to, be able to compare and contrast these different approaches to understand the trade-offs.
So QKD, super secure, but expensive and complex. Post-quantum cryptography, more practical, maybe a bit less secure, but still a strong contender.
Exactly. And, it's not necessarily about choosing one or the other. In the real world, the most effective strategy will probably involve a combination of approaches.
Right. Using the right tool for the right job.
Mhm.
That makes sense. But before we go any further, I want to bring this back to the real world for a second. Are there any countries that are actually, doing this, implementing quantum communication on a large scale?
Oh, absolutely. China, for example, they've been really leading the charge in this area. They've got, I think, the world's largest QKD network up and running.
Wow, China.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us more about that. How does their network work, and what can India, learn from their experience?
Well, they're using a mix of technologies, actually. They've got, ground-based fiber optic cables, but they've also got these dedicated quantum satellites beaming down, get this, entangled photons.
Entangled photons from space. Okay, that's just cool.
It is. And these photons are received by, I believe, 4 ground stations spread across the country.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They've got both, the ground-based and the satellite-based systems.
Exactly, a multi-layered approach. And that's something, India is likely to consider as well.
Right, because we talked about Handle up in the Himalayas being perfect for satellite-based QKD.
Exactly. So India is taking notes, learning from what other countries are doing, but also, adapting it to their own needs.
So it's not just about, copying what China's doing. It's about understanding the principles and applying them in a way that makes sense for India.
Exactly. And that's, a key takeaway for anyone studying for the UPSC. It's not just about memorizing facts and figures. It's about understanding the nuances, the bigger picture.
Right. It's about being able to think critically, to analyze different approaches, to come up with your own informed conclusions.
Exactly. And, this whole field of quantum communication, it's not just about, national security and government secrets.
Oh, there's more. I was kind of thinking that was the main application, to be honest.
It's a big one, for sure. But this technology has the potential to revolutionize so many other areas of life.
Okay, now you've really got my attention. Give us some examples. How could quantum communication impact, the average person's life?
Well, let's start with healthcare. Imagine a future where, your medical records are not just secure, but instantly accessible to any doctor, anyone in the world.
Okay, so no more carrying around those, giant files of paperwork every time you go to a new doctor.
Exactly. And it could also enable, secure telemedicine consultations, remote surgery, even real-time monitoring of patients with chronic conditions.
Wow. So even people in, remote villages could potentially have access to the best medical care.
Precisely. And that's just one example. Think about finance. Quantum communication could make online banking, virtually unhackable.
Okay, that would definitely put my mind at ease. No more worrying about, identity theft or fraud.
Exactly. And it could also pave the way for, new types of digital currencies, more secure ways of making international payments.
So we're talking about a fundamental shift in how we, handle money, how we interact with the financial system.
It really could be that transformative. And it goes even further. Transportation, scientific research, even, everyday consumer technology.
So this is the tip of the iceberg, really. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of what quantum communication can do.
Exactly. And for anyone who wants to, shape the future, whether in India or anywhere else in the world, understanding this technology, understanding its potential, it's absolutely crucial.
Well said. And on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap up this part of our deep dive. But don't worry, folks, we'll be right back after a quick break to explore even more fascinating applications of quantum communication and discuss what it all means for India's future. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey today, exploring the world of quantum communication.
And I think it's safe to say it's a topic that can really get the gears turning, especially if you're, prepping for the UPSC exams.
Absolutely. So many layers to unpack, so many potential implications for India's future. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but that's why we're here, right? To try and break it down, make it understandable, and, hopefully even a little bit exciting.
Exactly. So for our listeners who are, furiously taking notes, what are the absolute must-know takeaways? The things they need to really grasp to, ace those UPSC questions?
Okay, good question. I think first and foremost, they need to understand why this matters to India strategically. It's not just about, the cool science, it's about the bigger picture.
Right. It's like imagine you're in the UPSC interview
Yeah.
and the panel asks, okay, we get it. Quantum communication is cool, but why should India pour resources into this when we have, so many other pressing needs?
Exactly. That's where you need to be able to articulate the strategic rationale. You talk about how quantum communication can safeguard India's, sovereignty in an increasingly digital world.
So it's about like national security, protecting sensitive data, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. You highlight how it can protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks, ensure the integrity of, financial systems, even project in India's technological prowess on the global stage.
It's about showing them you're not just like a tech geek, you're a strategic thinker who gets the real world implications.
Exactly. And I think another key area to focus on is the comparison between QKD and post-quantum cryptography. The UPSC, they love to test your ability to, analyze different approaches, weigh the pros and cons.
So it's not about declaring one the winner, but showing you understand the trade-offs.
Precisely. QKD, it offers this, potentially Absolutely. One area that I'm particularly excited about is healthcare. Imagine a future where, medical records are not only secure, but instantly accessible to any authorized personnel anywhere in the world.
So no more like faxing medical records back and forth or,
Yeah.
waiting weeks for those files to transfer.
Exactly. And it could also enable things like, secure telemedicine consultations, remote surgery, even real-time monitoring of patients with, chronic conditions.
Wow. So even people in, remote areas could potentially have access to the best medical care, regardless of where they live.
Precisely. And that's just one example. Think about finance. Quantum communication could make online banking, virtually unhackable.
Okay, now that's something I think everyone can get behind. No more worrying about, those pesky hackers draining your bank account.
Exactly. And it could also lead to, new forms of digital currencies, more secure ways to make international payments.
So we're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about money, how the whole financial system operates.
It really could be that transformative. And the applications go even further. Transportation, scientific research, even, everyday consumer technology.
So this is like the tip of the iceberg, really. We've only just scratched the surface of what quantum communication can do.
We have. And for anyone who wants to, shake the future, understanding this technology, its potential, its limitations, it's absolutely crucial.
Well said. It's definitely been a mind-expanding journey today, exploring this complex but incredibly exciting world of quantum communication.
It has. And I think the key takeaway for our listeners, especially those preparing for the UPSC, is that this isn't just some, abstract scientific concept.
Right. It has real-world implications,
Yeah.
and it's going to play a major role in shaping India's future on the global stage.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of your knowledge. This is just the beginning of the quantum revolution, and it's going to be an amazing ride.
And as always, thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic. Until then, happy learning.